Hundreds of business executives and risk professionals from around the world asked us how they could use enterprise risk management, or ERM, more strategically to create value-driven performance. We listened, and so did the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission, also known as COSO. They engaged us to update the ERM integrated framework to address how the alignment of risk, strategy, and performance could create unprecedented opportunity for optimal business performance. Originally issued in 2004 by COSO, the framework is one of the most widely recognized and applied enterprise risk management frameworks in the world. We've created a video series that explains the key changes to this framework. This video showcases how performance is enhanced through integration with enterprise risk management. Today I'm sitting with Martens and Helene Katz, two of the members of the core COSO project team, to talk about how the framework provides guidance to integrate enterprise risk management and business performance. Team, this has been a tough one, hasn't it? We're trying to change the conversation, this linkage between risk and performance, and in particular the conversation about how much risk our organization is taking in pursuit of their performance objectives. Frank, why don't you dive into this a little bit for us?
Yeah, so to set the stage, what we heard in the research we were doing is that organizations were looking for greater confidence about their strategic choices and their strategies, and we're looking for ways to manage risk and performance together in achieving those.
So Helen, why don't you dive a little bit into the structure or framework of this for us so we understand how this conversation between risk and performance, amount of risk being taken in pursuit of performance objectives, how does that come to life?
So one of the innovative ways that we've come up with in terms of demonstrating that relationship is building what we call a risk profile. It actually illustrates how risk appetite, performance, and acceptable variation in performance all come together. And most importantly, actually highlights how risk changes with different levels of performance. As an example, we thought we'd go through a university that strategy is to become the university of choice in its region. In order to do that, it's exploring the opportunity of establishing a new curriculum for its graduates. We've identified a number of risks that may threaten the achievement of that objective. On the y-axis, we have the amount of risk that the organization is willing to accept in the pursuit of its objectives. And on the x-axis, we're actually plotting the performance metrics that the organization is going to use to measure the success of the organization against that objective. The number of new students being enrolled is used as the gauge to whether this objective is being executed as desired. So at the outset, with very few students enrolled, the university identifies that it actually has the great amount of risk. As those student numbers start to increase, the amount of risk decreases. We notice that there is a point where the risk actually starts to go back up. So where the number of new students is growing at such a rate that it actually starts to introduce more risk back towards the university. Once we've plotted this graph, the university is in a position to be able to determine what its optimal target is, given the corresponding risk associated with that number of students. In this instance, they assume that 2,500 students is about where they want to aim in terms of measuring the success of the program. The acceptable variation in performance around that is between 2,000 and 3,000 students.
When we wound this conversation forward to after we've seen how the organization has performed against that objective, we've been able to look at overperformance and underperformance in the context of either did we take additional risk that we didn't consider in overperforming, or did risks manifest that impacted and created underperformance? Frank, I don't know if you had anything to add on the results of this approach and what we're doing here and how it creates more flexibility.
I think it does. One of the things that we found in the 2004 framework is that we use the term risk appetite and risk tolerance. And people oftentimes blur those together as one comment or one conversation. Maybe one's more of a gradation of the other, but they weren't necessarily taking the focus on performance. They were focused entirely on the risk aspect. I think what this update does in a very exciting way is show how this framework aligns into performance and gives that great conversation for management around what the risks are and how it's actually impacting performance.
I think that's probably one of the most exciting things, right, Helen?
Well, I think what's great is going back to the graphic, by actually understanding that relationship, organizations are better positioned to decide what the ideal performance target is and what that acceptable variation around that target should be. By being able to understand that risk isn't a single point and that it changes and evolves, you're starting to make much more risk-aware decisions.
See, in creating that dynamic where risk is actually involved, connected to the performance objective, creating a dynamic risk process that actually will respond to and help add value to the organization as it pursues its objectives, starts breaking you out of that risk heat map siloed type of view of risk and brings it closer together with the objectives. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Frank. We are definitely creating a new conversation with this one and hopefully pushing the bounds in terms of people's understanding, organizational understanding of how risk and performance relate to each other. As part of our efforts to solicit public feedback in the development of the COSO framework, please download the updated draft framework at coso.org and provide comments by September 30th. Also, visit pwc.com/COSO-ERM to learn more about the changes to the framework and how they will impact your business. Thank you.